Okay.
Hi, this is Peggy Knuckles. I'm sitting here at the Warrensburg Depot, Warrensburg, Missouri, and I'm going to tell you today the story of Holden Street and the man for whom it's named. It's a very interesting story, but in order to tell this story, I have to back way up. I have to go back to, 1804, when Lewis and Clark were making the Louisiana Purchase had been done. Lewis and Clark were coming west. As soon as they were done, they got nice government jobs. One of them became the Indian agent for this area, and the other one became the governor of the Louisiana Territory. Both of these men were very interested in moving the Indians out. This was Osage. All of this was once Osage country. Here it was heavily wooded. Here they hunted deer, and this was their homes. But both Lewis and Clark had financial interest. By financial interest, that means they were grabbing land to sell it, resell it to settlers. But they had a financial interest in moving the Indians out. And at first, in the very early 1800s, the Osage Indians came under heavy pressure to leave, not by the white man, but by Eastern Seaboard Indians who were coming this way. They had been dislocated from their own homes. They were coming here to hunt and find homes for themselves. The white man, of course, gave those Indians guns and the wherewithal to fight the Osage and to push the Osage. By the time Missouri became a state in 1821, Warrensburg became incorporated in the early 1830s as a town. People were moving in, and one of the men who came in, you always think of the pioneers, as coming to work the land and be hardscrabble farmers, but a lot of them came in. They were real estate people, and Nathaniel Holden came in the 1820s. This was his land. He put a claim on the area where the depot is, all the way south from here. It used to be heavily wooded behind us. Now it's Holden Street, which is a big, heavily trafficked street. But he and another man named Benjamin Grover were both real estate dealers, and they realized that if they were going to sell plots in this around Warrensburg, what they had to do was get the railroad, if you'll pan over there to the tracks, get the railroad to come through Warrensburg. Now, Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860. He was elected his campaign was financed by Big Railroad. And what they wanted was for him to push that railroad across the United States. And by now he was going to do it. They were coming across anyway. It was 1857 when they got word that the railroad was going to come west. Nathaniel Holden and Benjamin Grover were always in Jefferson City, working very hard to convince the Pacific Railroad to come through Warrensburg. They were going to go, I think the river is about 50 miles north of here. They were going to go along the Missouri River, and Holden and Grover both said, you've got steamboats are going up and down the river. That's one great area of public transportation. We need to put the railroad a little further south so that we'll have public transportation in another part of Missouri so we can develop the state. And so they did. They said by 1857 they got word that the railroad would be coming through Warrensburg. Lincoln was selected in 1860, and he was elected to push that. He's famous for the Civil War. Actually, what he was doing was pushing that railroad through. The Civil War happened. But anyway, Nathaniel Holden was a Democrat, which back then meant that he was sympathetic to the South. So as the Civil War was brewing, people knew it was coming, he was asked if he would join the Confederate Army, and he said no. He was interested in keeping the Union together, railroad, land development. So he fought very hard, and he worked really, really hard. Went around, back then you couldn't get on TV and state your case, so he had to go around all over the county. He was trying to get people, don't leave the Union, and this county was halfway split. But he worked so hard. Here comes a train now. I often go spit on his grave. But anyway, he worked very, very hard to get the railroad through here. So hard that in 1862 he had a stroke and he became paralyzed. And we're just going to have to sit down here and wait for, well, he can watch the train come through. He had a stroke, and he went to live with his sister just outside of Sunset Hill Cemetery, which is a great idea. So his sister the train can come through so fast and just stop on a dime. And here comes the passengers. These passengers getting off here. The Amtrak has really become very popular. I guess with the price of gas going up, people like to ride the train. So anyway, this is all Nathaniel Holden's fault. And all two passengers got off the train. Yeah, there it goes. Ready to pull out again. There goes the Amtrak. So, Nathaniel Holden had a stroke. He was paralyzed on one side. He was a bachelor and went to live with his sister. Hi.
Excuse me. Is there any bus station around here?
Bus station,
This
yes.
is it. The bus station's here.
Over on the
Like-
other side, just walk around the depot,
Okay.
and the parking lot on the other side is where you'll meet the
From the
bus.
store or?
Oh, it's right here. Just walk around.
Okay.
You gonna cross the road?
No, just walk around the building. Hello.
Hi. Do they have any buses that go?
Yeah, she just took him around to the bus.
You looking for the bus station?
The bus station up, but I'm really trying to go to Springfield.
Yeah, that guy, he was going to Branson.
Oh.
I'm at the same bus, stop at Springfield, stop at Branson.
Well, since I don't know how to edit, I am going to stop this video. Peggy will be back in a few minutes, but still in all, this is a lot of Here she comes. Guess I'll show you the flower garden that's here.
It's a lovely flower garden. While we're here, just pan on up the hill. This is Holden Street, and this is all of the land that Holden had. All of it was undeveloped, heavily wooded at the time that he owned it.
And one thing that Warrensburg has done that other small towns in Missouri have not done is they've planted trees along the downtown area, and it has really improved the aesthetic of the town.
But back to 1862. Holden had just had a stroke, was paralyzed on one side. He was a bachelor, went to live with his sister, and conveniently, just outside of the cemetery, his sister was Mrs. Frank Coburn. And one day her husband was away. Now remember, he had been offered a chance to join the Confederacy, and he would not. And as a matter of fact, he just worked himself practically to death into a stroke to preserve the Union for the railroad. And so one night he was with his sister. There came a knock at the door. She got up. She made a light, is what the newspaper article said. She made a light, and she went to the door and opened it. And just as soon as she opened it, a hand with a gun just reached right past her and shot him. And at the same time, another shot came through a window, and so he just fell dead to the floor. And to this day, nobody knows who shot him or why he was shot, but it's suspected that it was bushwhackers who were angry at him for not joining the Confederacy. So he died in 1862, and he never saw the railroad. The railroad was pushed through. It had stalled out in Sedalia, about 50 miles east of here. It stalled out in Sedalia. It was pushed through with great difficulty because the bushwhackers didn't want the railroad through. It was being used by Union troops. Got into Missouri just before the close of the Civil War, and there was a big push, a final push by the South to come in and destroy this railroad, but they weren't able to, and so today we have the railroad. That's the story of Nathaniel Holden and how the railroad came to Warrensburg.
Okay, so that's the end?
That's it.
Okay. Are you going to say goodbye?
Oh, goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay, goodbye.